Thank you, Stacy. Okay, well, thank you very much. And I don't think I've ever seen this room so full. What a great deal here. Um, I grew up in the state of Washington, way up in the corner of state of Washington, north of Bellingham, on the Canadian border. And I wasn't going to go to college, and then I got thinking about what I would do in life, and I said, well, maybe I should go to college. And so I went to Washington State University for a couple of years, and then went in the Navy, and came back and went to a school called Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo. I'd heard a lot about Poly, and by the way, I just watched the Rose Bowl parade, and Cal Poly is the only university that has a float every year in the Rose Bowl parade, and it's all done by the students. And then I decided I wanted to go into research, and the only way I could do that is go into grad school. So I chose one of the best in the country, and that was Cornell University, and went there, did my master's, then went on to Rutgers University, did my doctorate. And that's where I met Dr. Giacomelli. He was doing a lot of exciting work in Hamilton, right, Dr. Giacomelli? Hamilton, New Jersey. Yeah, close. Anyway, you know, I come from a farming background. He comes from a farming background. Not many of our family go on to school like this, so we understand one another a great deal. And but anyway, on coming here, I came with the Rockefeller Foundation, and that was to develop programs of what we call power, water, food projects on desert seacoast, knowing that we have roughly 20,000 miles of desert seacoast in the world, that if we could habitate that area, we could probably feed another 1 billion people. The thing is, we had a lot of sand, a lot of seawater, lots of sun. The big hang-up was seawater, so we developed desalination projects, and we built our own, and we put them in Puerto Penasco, Mexico. It's right across the border in Sonora here, with a Rockefeller grant and the Office of Saline Water under the Kennedy administration. And that project was so far out that we got in Time magazine, and we had a call from a little country called Abu Dhabi. I didn't know what it was. I thought maybe it was a breakfast cereal, you know. But, you know, I did find out later in life that Abu Dhabi was the first to boycott our oil back in the 70s. So we learned a lot about Abu Dhabi, and I was there during that time growing vegetables for all the people coming from overseas to work in the oil industry. They also had a number of cholera outbreaks there, and so they could not import vegetables, so we had to grow them there. And that's what we did. And because of the location on a very barren island in the Persian Gulf, we got tremendous coverage of our work. Guess what? We had nothing but sand. And so we learned how to do that, and I may cover that a little bit in my talk. But we had to learn how to grow hydroponically, which I had learned at Rutgers University and Cornell, but rather than using a soilless media, peat and vermiculite, we were using pure sand. And that sand was 99.9% calcium carbonate. So meaning if you had a low pH below 7, it would completely dissolve that sand and tie up the phosphorus. And your plants died of phosphorus deficiency. So we had to work out solutions that were completely neutral, a pH of 7, and we started growing plants. And every time the ruler would have visitors, I entertained 3 presidents of countries at one time. I never saw so many machine guns around in all my life. I like to show that photo once in a while. I said, when they get insects over here, they're serious. You know. But anyway, we learned a lot on that barren island. I had my family there. I started the American school. We brought teachers in from Princeton University to work with us. And today, that's a very ongoing American school in Abu Dhabi, United Arab Emirates. So anyway, that was an exciting, but I never realized that project would ricochet or go on to other projects. I did a project for the Shah of Iran. It was one that was given, the greenhouses were given by British Petroleum as a recognition of the oil they were getting from Iran, and they gave them a greenhouse. And we built that. So I learned a little Farsi. And then next thing you know, I went to Morocco and worked with the king there on developing a research station in the deserts of North Africa. And I was there 2 years. And then on, we went on to other places. And what happened was Disney had heard about what we were doing, and they said, you know, we want that store at Epcot Center. Would you come and do that? Well, it ended up to be a multi-million-dollar grant to the University of Arizona with Kraft Foods as a sponsor. And I remember my colleagues would say, who in the world is going to come and see agriculture? You know, the general public just don't get it. But they're starting to get it now because we're growing good crops and, you know, not many farmers anymore. But anyway, my colleagues would say, who would ever come? Well, we did a lot of exciting things. We did aeroponics, aquaponics, every kind of thing, spinning wheels. If you look at Horta Daily today, all that you see at Horta Daily, it's all started at Cornell, Rutgers with Gene, and here at the University of Arizona. Period. That's how it started. And so we built that land pavilion, and since we opened that, we've had 128 million people through that show, and people just can't get enough. They love it to see where their food is coming from. So this is a big thing. I love farm markets, and Marco here, he's from the San Diego area, and I know about his family. But farm markets are a thing of the future. Small farms. You don't have to be a big farm. Small farm. And we talk about organic, but the real important thing is local. I often go right into the supermarkets and I see consumers standing and say, why are you here? One word. Most times it's local. That's why they're there. They feel safe by buying local food. Maybe because they know where you hang out and they know where to go to if they get sick. I don't know. But anyway, that's a really big thing. So there are really 11 critical factors in this business. And they're all very, very important. And after working in this area for over 50 years in 65 countries, I've come to realize that there are must in some of these things and going on. I was talking to Christian Moore this morning. We were sitting in the hot tub together, weren't we, Christian? And I said, what? You know, that's where we do our best thinking, you know, every morning. So anyway, we were sitting there, and I said, what was really impressed you with this thing here at CEAC? He said, detail. Detail, a lot of detail. So we're going to go over some detail, and I'll try to make it a learning experience for you. And so 11 critical factors when producing undercover. So I've had many growers, my growers back east in Massachusetts at Hopkinton, right where they start the Boston Marathon, and New York and so forth. And, you know, if you follow these 11 factors, you're going to make it. You know, often I have people come to me and they'll say, well, we're not going to do that factor. I said, I'm out of here. It's that important, I think, for your future. So this is the kind of crop that you want. Soilless media, which we started at Rutgers, white poly on the floor, drip irrigation, constant liquid feed. Those are all things we started while at Rutgers with ag engineers, Professor Bill Roberts, Gene, and so forth. Anyway, so marketing and distribution, that is probably one of the most important things you have to do. Where are you going to market your product? And how do you want to market? How are you going to package it? It's so important that consumer come into the produce area and boom, they're drawn right into that package. You know, this morning I was having we were having oatmeal for breakfast, and I noticed that there was a half liter in a very plastic bottle. And I said, why don't they just put that in a cardboard? No, it was to draw your attention. That bottle might have cost a bit more, but I'm sure that they had a lot of consumers buying that because it attracted them when they purchased it. So marketing and distribution. So go into the stores, go into Whole Foods, go into Upbeat stores and see how they are marketing. And what they want to do, the stores today, they want you to feel like you're in a farm market. They have a lot of wood. They have a lot of fancy containers. They'll have ways of displaying. And I love to go to farm markets. The first thing when I go with my wife to the market, I go right over to the produce section. And I know most of the produce people here in town, and they'll tell me when something's exciting and new, what they experience. So that's very good to know the produce people. And this is one of the growers that I work with in Washington State. You will see that they have here a photograph of their family. It's a family situation. People feel good, and they have what we call the waterfall effect. Tomatoes pouring out of the baskets like there's a lot. You know, I often stuff bushel baskets with paper to have the tomatoes look like they're overflowing. No one wants to buy the last tomato. So we do that. We got the waterfall effect. And we have the little cucumbers. I'll talk about them in a little bit. We had to get a fancy name for the little cucumbers. We know the kids like them. We call them little snackers. So right away, people are drawn into that. So it's very important to know where you're going to market, how you will market, and how they would treat you. I would say one thing before I forget. A lot of the big boys in the business produce 12 months of the year. It happens. And no one ever comes back to say, where are your tomatoes? Where are these good tomatoes? The McPhails in Washington State go out at Thanksgiving and don't come back into production until April. In that time, Hagen stores, they just get bugged to death. Where are those tomatoes? Where are those tomatoes? And they have no trouble getting $3.05 a pound for their tomatoes wholesale, and they sell for $4.50 retail, while the Canadian ones sell for $1.79, and they almost outsell because they love the tomatoes. And what you've learned here, how to stress the plant to get more sweetness, that's what people are after. We're not selling red water balls. We're selling flavor and vitamins and minerals. The variety, type and variety is very important. And so one of the things I want you to do before you leave, we got a person here from Johnny Seed. You all ought to have a Johnny Seed catalog. You didn't bring 60 with you, did you? Oh, you still have some. So be sure you get a Johnny Seed catalog. And then we have the Rooter Seed Company here as well. And they're always looking for new ideas, new tomatoes to breed. What is the consumer looking for? How are you going to market it? And boy, the marketing schemes down the line are unbelievable. I've been sworn to secrecy. Unbelievable what we're going to be doing in the future. But you'll hear about it. So the variety, so cherry tomatoes. You know, having spent a lot of time in tough areas, hot, humid areas, the Philippines and Abu Dhabi and Guatemala and southern part of Mexico and El Salvador, they have really hot conditions. And tomatoes are a temperate crop. They're not a tropical crop. So if I had to grow for the devil, I would grow a cherry tomato, because they can take really excess heat. That and cherry tomatoes, grape tomatoes, they'll take excess heat. You'll see the tomatoes in every store called Nature Sweet. It's called the Cherubs. They have Sunburst and other varieties. And they grow those in hot, warm conditions of Mexico, and that's what they specialize, is the cherry tomatoes. They could not grow the larger tomatoes because they got to have almost perfect temperatures. What is perfect temperatures? 75 to 80 degrees in the day and about 60, 65 at night. And cloudy weather, only 65 degrees. You know why? Why? Why do we lower temperatures on a cloudy day? Less photosynthesis. That's exactly right. And what burns that food made through photosynthesis? It's respiration. Respiration. So that respiration is occurring 24 hours a day. So if you got warmer temperatures and it's driven by temperature, what's going to happen is that you're going to have very poor pollen, and the pollen will not be strong enough carbohydrate to germinate and grow the pollen tube down to fertilize the gametes. The gametes will become seeds, okay? So the thing is, it's all about light and respiration. You got to balance that. So maybe next time we'll do more on that. We've been talking to Dr. Jackie, man. We're probably going to, we know when plants wake up. We wire plants just like people. We know when they wake up. We know when they go to sleep. We know when they go to sleep early because something's wrong. We have studied that. We know that. We have the equipment to do that. So we're even talking about, I know you can't stand another half day because you're almost here a whole week, but we may do that in the future so that we understand, so you understand why plants tick. So the beefsteak tomatoes are, a lot of people want beefsteak, and you will find the buyers. You say, well, I only got cherry. Oh, no, we don't want cherry tomatoes. We want only beefsteak. If you came in, say, well, I got only beefsteak, they'll tell you they want cherry tomatoes. That's the way those buyers are. If you had to fill out one sheet of ethics, you only get one sheet on buyers. You know, they're always working on you. But pretty soon, if you have quality, they'll beg you to have your product because it brings clients to the store. So that's very important. So lots of different varieties. The TOVs, tomato on the vine. We like the tomato on the vine because that that vine is there, and when you touch that, you get that oil. I've been working on artificial oil to give that smell, whether it's live and you know, they really go for that. When they touch that, that tomato's fresh. It can be a week old. It still has that oil in it. And that was something the Dutch created. There's a TOA, tomatoes on the vine, the beefsteak tomatoes. You got the Roma tomato, which has been mainly used to make catsup because of its solids. But we have good tasting Romas today. And they will take a lot of abuse. They will go into quite hot climate. So anyway, onward go. We've even got little cherry tomatoes. We call them strawberries, you see. Give them fancy names. If you got a really fancy name, you ought to register it. Like little, little snackers. You know, I've been after that family to register that. And there's some names coming very close to that, but it's a very catchy name. Cucumbers. I remember I probably was one of the first in the United States to try cucumbers because I'm half Dutch and that's where they were developed. And I got these long cucumbers and I brought the guys down from the big markets in New York, and you know what they told me? Son, that zucchini squash will never make it. I said, well, not squash, they're cucumbers. Well, we put them into a Disney show. Now they're a big deal. But the thing is, families are small. They don't want a big cucumber. We want the little cucumber. So the other thing is with the large cucumber, you got to wrap them. You got to put them through a shrink fill because they lose water and they become very flaccid. They almost look like a boomerang after a while, you know. So a lot of people now, the small growers, are going to the small cucumber. We call them the mini cukes. And we can put them in a bag. We put 5 in the bag. There's all kinds of ways you can do that. And they go over very well. And they'll put them in school lunches. You got good tomatoes with high sugar. What they will do is the kids take them rather than M&M candy, see? So that's what we're getting to in the future is packaging for lunches for children. Peppers. We get some requests on people wanting to do peppers. Remember, peppers are hollow. You get a good yield of 60 kilos per square meter of tomatoes. You got a real good yield if you got 30 kilos per square meter of peppers. They're hollow. So what am I saying? You got to get twice the price of your peppers over tomatoes. You see where I'm going with this? So we let the peppers grow. We let the Canadians grow them in Mexico and Latin America. They grow them. They got advantages on not having to heat as much. In Canada they do, although they use a lot of waste heat up there. But peppers we can grow, but again, it's not my favorite. They're hard to grow. Lettuce. This is a project. I've done a lot of lettuce projects. And let me tell you, with Miles, you're in great hands with Miles. He's worked on lettuce projects for many, many years, and he just does a wonderful thing. But this was a recent one I did in Washington State, this is floating lettuce, what you're going to be studying here. And this is one that was on the ranch of President Fox in Mexico. What we do is you plant the young plants on floating boards, and as they grow, they go to the opposite end where we harvest them. And we have many great varieties of lettuce, and you can grow there. There's NFT. You don't do the deep flow system on a rooftop. It's very heavy, you see. So we use NFT systems up there, and there's some NFT systems that are just great. Again, it's how to manage these systems under your conditions. Also, young plants. This happens to be young plants of basil. And the interesting thing is, I'm going to tell a little story here because I got to tell this. This is basil growing in Sacramento. And they get beautiful basil, beautiful. Fresh roots. But in 2008, when we had the depression, when the markets went out, no one wanted to buy basil anymore. My friend in Castroville, California, grows 95% of artichokes. The artichoke sales went down to half. So people were now starting to buy lettuce and some of the major cabbage and roast beef, some of the major ingredients, potatoes. They weren't going with the luxuries. Anyway, that's something to think about is that do you have a clientele around you that can afford what you grow? Now, I get scolded for this, but I'm going to tell you something. If you go to a supermarket and you see a lot of oil on the ground because of old cars, you don't want to go in the store. People can't afford your product. But that's just, I heard that some other entrepreneur one time. So you want to go to the Whole Foods, those places where you have a clientele that will pay for a quality product. And there's a lot of people in this country that can't afford your product. But this is the basil here. And again, very high quality. And in the farm markets, what I do, when we do farm markets, when we have farm markets where growers are actually growing the food right there. They can walk through a set of, and they can be right there where the basil's growing, the cucumbers and tomatoes. And what I do, I always put the fans on the other side of the basil so the smell of the basil comes to where they're sitting. It's part of the 5 senses that we work with: touch, smell, sight, and all that. So you got to work with that. That's why Disney is so good at what they do. They work with the 5 senses. If you go into the Energy Pavilion at Epcot Center, you'll see the dinosaurs up there, audio animatronics, chewing their cud, and it smells musty. Just what you think what that air should smell like. And so we do that, and it really works, okay? Strawberries. A lot of interest in strawberries. And I don't think we have varieties in this country that work in greenhouses well. Dr. Kubota has been working on this for a number of years. I have farmer friends in California, Santa Barbara. We haven't found varieties of strawberries that will compete in yield to what we get out of Mexico and Watsonville and California. The most we can get in 6 months from strawberry, it was about a pound per plant, or 3/4 of a pound. And you don't have that many plants per square meter. So that's why when we grow tomatoes, we grow them up in the air. We're producing on a cubic volume basis. Lettuce, we're even doing that now, vertical farming. We're growing on a cubic volume basis. We even got ways now where the lettuce will come to us. The floating system works, but we have even better systems, I think, for the future. So strawberries are being looked at, but I would look at the European varieties over in Spain and some of those areas. They have good varieties. Cantaloupe. Cantaloupe, unbelievable what we can do in the greenhouse. We can grow 90,000 cantaloupe per acre per year with 3 crops. And you know what you can do? You can put the cantaloupe. I have all these slides, but I had to have 400 slides to show you. But you can put the cantaloupe on an A-frame like this, hanging down. And the old cantaloupe, they would fall off the stem when it was ripe. We call it full slip. So what we do when we grow cantaloupe like this, the water underneath is from a power plant to keep the place warm, because cantaloupe likes high humidity. And then when the crop starts ripening up, we just shake the trellis, the cantaloupe fall, hit the water, and float to the bagging house. It's going to happen. We don't have labor in the future. It's all going to be robotics and these kinds of systems in the future. We will be growing tomatoes on an A-frame with the clusters hanging down, with the robot going down the heating pipes, and it will have machine vision, and we'll pick the clusters that are right and put them maybe in the box. So that's where we're going in the future. Location is very important, and I've had an opportunity to work in most of these countries, in these areas. Location is very important. And so let's talk about the United States. I'm going to tell you right here, this area right in here is almost impossible to grow. It's almost impossible to grow in the summertime. Why? Humid. What does humidity do for cooling? You just can't. It's called cyclometrics. And Dr. G probably talked about that already today, but I have a chart later on to show you. So you're going to say, well, I'm going to have to go, instead of going out in the winter, I'm going to have to go out in the summer. Up here we go out of production in the winter, unless you have artificial lighting. Now a lot of people, you got to know what artificial lighting costs. I was talking to Christian, and he said artificial lighting, what does electricity cost in Puerto Rico? How many cents a kilowatt hour? 0.37. 27 cents a kilowatt hour. Here it's roughly 7 or 8 cents, isn't it, Dr. G? 11? Oh, yeah. It's going up on us. Over 40. Japan. Why are all these vertical farms going out of business? They got, I don't know how many nuclear reactors not working because of the tsunami. Their energy there is 35, 40 cents a kilowatt hour. So that's very, I'm working with a vertical farming group right now, and they're looking where the electricity is cheap. So that's something to really consider. So you got light, you got temperature. I showed you, I'll show you in a moment. But so this is why we see so many greenhouses around this area right in here. That we can grow during the winter time without lights. We do a pretty good job. We may get a little warm in Arizona, so we just go a little higher in altitude to get the temperature we want. But if you get a good temperature in the wintertime, through evaporative cooling, you're going to have more heating in the winter. You follow me? The only times you're going to get the temperatures the same day and night, no matter when, is down by the equator. And that's a long ways to ship. El Norte is a long ways, okay? So we see a lot of projects down here that haven't made it because, again, in the summertime. So know where you're going. Know the light units you need to grow a plant. Know, again, when you can grow and can't grow. We like to grow 12 months of the year. But again, I didn't tell you about the McPhails. They go out of production in November, back in production in April. The people come in and ask for the tomatoes. I think you got the hint on that. Because so many people come in, the store never argues about giving them $3.05 a pound. So there's an advantage going on. We're back to the old days where you couldn't wait to get the peaches coming in. They weren't coming in from Chile. They were coming in where I grew up from Eastern Washington. See? So those are all things to think about again. There's a little bit of light data here. Tucson, Arizona is one of the brightest in the country. In October, November, the joules per square centimeter, 93 units, 9,300. But look at here in England. That's why they have Spain. That's why they have Morocco. Okay, look at Seattle. Got to have a lot of light there, a lot of light. We can't go. We can get by, we can start right here. This is about the breaking point for winter that we can do that. So know about the light and know about the light requirements of the crop you need to grow. Let me show you something. The Dutch have always said 1% less light, 1% less yield. And so look, so I did that for a whole year. I had, where I had 0 shade in the greenhouse, I had 35, now greenhouse was a lot of shade just from the structure itself. Then I had 35% shade, and then I had 70% shade. And you will notice here that the yield, this is the yield, and this was the light. Look at, as we got more light, look at the yield. Look at here. You say, what happened here? That's when I didn't realize that oxygen was really important. Which has more oxygen, cool water or warm water? Exactly. A young person falls through the ice, they can be underwater for quite a long time because there's a lot of oxygen in the water, right? So when a Danish guy came over, okay, that didn't sound right. I hope not. Yeah, no, that's right. I'm sorry. I always know when people laugh, I said something wrong. But okay. Anyway, the Dane came over and said, "Have you ever thought about oxygen?" He said, "Even fish need oxygen." And I got used to oxygen really quick. It's all about oxygen. And I should have listened to my professors at Cornell because they also talked about it. But anyway, it's a detail you need to be paying attention. So in Washington, we have to use lights. And they have pretty cheap electricity, 6 cents a kilowatt hour. And they get special off-day rates. In other words, in the nighttime when most people are sleeping, they got a lot of electricity. So they'll give you electricity a lot cheaper. Think about that. So in the morning, that rate will go up. So what you do, you probably put the lights on for 5 hours, and Dr. G can really work with you on that, for 5 hours, and then you put the lights on and the light comes on. You don't want to put those plants back to sleep because it takes them a little while to wake up again. I mean, they're just like kids, like us. So that light goes into when you get light and it's keep growing and it really works good, okay? So something to think about. Again, I know they talked to you about this. You got to know about your water. I mean, one of the first things I look at is climate but the second is climate, is the water. There are a lot of places in this country, in the southern tiers, that your water will have a lot of boron. Only 1 part per million of boron will kill your plants. Just 1 part per million. And so you got to know the kind of water. I've had people build their greenhouses, then they have to end up using reverse osmosis. And the thing is that boron is not taken out of the water with reverse osmosis because it's so soluble. So what we have to do then, we work on catching the rain and taking the rain, water harvesting, we put that in the reservoirs to dilute the well water. We had to do that in the Caribbean, okay? So something to think about. Management. You know, a lot of people, especially the city folks, think that, you just grow potatoes on the hillside. When it's time to harvest, you pull the stick and they roll in the basket. It's not quite that simple. But the thing is that there's a lot of detail involved. And you know, you've had a chance to learn how to wrap plants, you know, lift the plant, take your hand and twist that. No, don't twist the plant around the string, because then you're going to break plant. You break 10 plants out of 100, you lost 10% of your yield. That's sometimes your profit. So you got to learn how to get another shoot, and you got to wait another couple of months to get that shoot to bear flowers, you know. So it takes a lot of training, and typically it takes about 6 months to educate and train someone to wrap and tie tomato plants. Just something to remember. It's not that easy. We have students that come in from all over the world here, and most of them get really good jobs. They get really good jobs. I would say that out of 15, 20 students, only 1 or 2 will make it. They can't take the detail. They want off at 5 o'clock. They don't like to come in Saturday. They like to come in late. Aggies can't do that. Aggies typically will work 8, 10, 12 hours a day. It depends on the season. If you're getting $3.05 a pound wholesale, it really helps work long hours. Okay? So again, this chap here is from Puerto Rico. He came here, spent time with, he works with the Veterans Administration nationwide now, taking GIs and teaching them how to grow greenhouse crops. Doing very well. Very well. Trained here, educated at the University of Arizona. This here is Del Monte out of Guatemala. He's learning how to wrap tomato plants. See, Del Monte, they can grow pineapple and melons, but they don't know anything about tomato plants. And they had a big learning curve. They did. But anyway, he learned how to do that and was here for a couple months. A lot of times when I work with big company, I'll go down there. I worked at the University of Arizona 5 years. I already had 1 million miles of American Airlines. I slept on my passport. And that got to be pretty old, but I still got that gold card for early boarding. But anyway, what I do now, I got smart. Where do I have my, I'm going to get something out here that's really unbelievable. See this little thing right here? It's called an air tube. Now, those of you who know me thought, how did you ever learn how to do that? You're such an old guy, you know. But what I do, I are teaching people in Okinawa how to grow tomatoes. They can grow fancy melons, and they can grow bonsai, and they can grow chrysanthemums, but they don't know how to grow tomatoes like we do in Holland or England, Spain or United States or Israel. So I'm teaching them by Skype. If you don't like Skype, we got Zoom. If you don't like that, we got FaceTime. It works really well. And so I said, let me take a look at your crop. So that's it. 8,000 miles away. Oh, stop. I said, you got russet mites. I can tell. I've been doing this a long time. And they said, what's russet mites? I said, just get a little magnifying glass and you'll see. They're pretty fast. In fact, they'll probably be on a Honda motorcycle. They go so fast. But anyway, they move fast. Russet mites. Beware of that. We all have them all over the world. They get caught in the wind currents, and they'll come from your neighbors and so forth. So what I do when I work with growers, because small growers don't have the cost of the plane ticket and all that, so we work by Skype, and we can do that. We have people here work by Skype, and it's called telehorticulture. Not telemedicine, telehorticulture. See, we do that, and it's working really well. Okay, move on. The systems are sophisticated. You know, I know you probably learned about dosatrons and dosomatics, but they don't change ECs by light. You get what you get. So what I'm saying is that if you want to have flavor and the light gets kind of bad and you lower the temperatures, what you have to do is that you're not making the photosynthate, you're not making the sugar. So what we do, we stress the plant so that now we desiccate the plant so water's pulled from the fruit and we concentrate the sugars. Nature Sweet, you'll see them in every store. Their bricks on their fruit is 6 to 7 bricks, the percent sugar. I've walked with Nature Sweet logo in Dallas Fort Worth Airport, and I've had ladies stop me and they said, are you the one that grows those tomatoes? And I said, well, I work at it. She said, I have to tell my kids if they don't finish their supper, they can't have any more tomatoes. I said, speak in the mic, you know. That's what we want to hear. That's what we want to hear. So the thing is that you've got to have good equipment. And these equipments do cost a lot. And I'm sure Stacy showed you some of that. But anyway, these are computer systems. They're almost to the point of artificial intelligence. Hopefully you got the smart to do the program, because it's going to be as smart as what you know, okay? Very important. Greenhouse design. I'm not a big guy on shade houses. They just give a little protection, give a little shade, stop the wind a little bit. And what happens in tropical air, we get a lot of algae growing. And these people just haven't understood. They just don't learn about photosynthesis. It gets so dark, you might as well grow mushrooms. You see? Anyway, so look what happened. When I started in this whole thing, I went to Holland. I spent a lot of time. You had to duck to get in the greenhouse. Then we found out if you went up 1 meter, you could cool the temperatures another 6 degrees, called the chimney effect. You go into the old towns and villages, they have these great big smokestacks. You ask the students, why were the smokestacks built that high? Oh, they didn't want to pollute the community. They didn't worry about the community. They wanted that draft for the forges, so they had the hot fire. The higher the smokestack, the more draft they had, called the chimney effect. So where are we at now? Well, I'm going to show you where we're at. We're building them really high, because we know that every meter we go up, or 3.281 feet, we lower the temperatures 4, 6, 7 degrees, okay? Makes a big difference. So we go high. And then we do it with plastic houses. And I want you to see these vents on top. It's very important, because I'm going to get to that. This will save your project, what I'm going to tell you. Glass houses are high as well. This is in Maine. This is Backyard Farms. They know that, Johnny Siege. Okay, environmental control. A lot of greenhouses, a lot of companies. They'll come to you. We got the perfect greenhouse for you. We got a greenhouse, we call it the sawtooth. So I'll say, well, what if the wind, in my country or my town, the heat rises. And the heat's going out there. But what if the wind is blowing in that vent? Oh, never mind, Doc, that's okay. We got side vents. The air will go out. I said, well, you're going against nature. You're trying to take that air that normally goes out, you're trying to put it out the side. And I said, what about the crop inside? In the middle, it's going to be a completely different environment than around the perimeter. Well, anyway, so I want you to know that. So what we're going to do is that we're going to, so I compared for 1 year a sawtooth house to this house here. This house here had air blow in, and it went down. Air would go over the top, like an airplane, pull air out. So I had to push-pull. So what did that do for me? I'm going to show you what that did for me. Outside average temperature, 26.6. That's pretty warm. That's up close to, getting up close to 90 degrees. About the same. The greenhouses are very close to one another. Average inside high temperature was almost 34 degrees centigrade. That is bloody hot, as we say. Here, 26. I don't know if you had a chance to talk about VPDs, but that's another whole couple hours. Okay, vapor pressure, when you have the right temperature, the right humidity, and the plants are working. When that plant can't get enough water because it's losing so much water, what will happen? The plant will shut down. The stomate's closed. So what was happening here? Perfect conditions, 3.7 hours versus 9.6 hours. 35% more yield. We didn't put any side up and down vents on the side. None of the Dutch houses have that. They got the double wing vents, butterfly vents we call it. So make sure, and Dr. Giacomelli can tell you exactly how big they should be according to the width of your greenhouse, okay? Fan and pad ventilation. By the way, the pads were developed here with Swedish at the University of Arizona. Our engineers did that for Abu Dhabi. You know, gave surface area for evaporation, but we got the fans up high because heat rises, the pads down low because cold air rises, so we get to start low, and fan and pads. And there are areas in the country where you have to use them, but this is some of the Swedes when we first did this in Abu Dhabi, is the fan and pads. Now, okay, you say in my area I have 100 degrees, which is 38 degrees centigrade. And you'll say, well, I'm coming down there. I'm coming from Alabama. And my humidity is really high. And this is 60%. That's low. But my temperature is going to be 96 degrees. I can only lower it 4 degrees. But I'm in Arizona. And I have a 10% humidity at times. So we'll go, let's go a little higher. Let's go up to 20% humidity. With that low humidity, I can cool from 100 down to 70 degrees. I can cool 30 degrees. If you come out of Tucson of a swimming pool in the summertime, it's 100-some degrees. Your water is evaporating off your body, and you have to get a towel to stay warm. In Texas, you're sweating. You see? You get it? Very important. Very important. Okay, so if you're going to have fan and patch, you've got to keep the critters out because they carry viruses. And you got whitefly. Whitefly is everywhere. These little guys carry the worst viruses you could ever believe. They all came from the Middle East. Researchers in the Middle East, in some of those countries, said we got to get this project going in the United States really quick, and they brought their tomato plants over. They brought the whitefly with them. So what happens? This completely destroys your crop. It's a very severe virus. So anyway, you got to watch that. Shading to control environments. Sometimes growers will shade, and if they get a real hot day, they will bring helicopters in and spray the greenhouse. Well, you're probably not going to be that big, so you spray with a sprayer, just get some spray on, and have a light meter inside, and you'll know. You have someone watch the light meter as you're spraying, and they can tell you when to stop. See? We do that with the helicopters, with the big growers. And but here's another thing that's very important. I've been in more greenhouses. They say, Doc, our workers are all getting dizzy. So I say, well, do you have any deer hunters in the family? Well, they died because they put the fire out in the camper and there was no fresh air. They got carbon monoxide. I said, that's why your greenhouses workers are getting dizzy. They don't have any fresh air. This is to take the fumes off, the exhaust. This is the fresh air. You have to have 2 square inches per every so many BTUs. You can look that up. Okay, I don't remember right now. So the thing is that as that fire is burning, you've got to have fresh air for that fire. Really important. In fact, the big growers that have the great big boilers, they have these great big openings, and you think you're in a windstorm. That air is moving so fast, that oxygen for that combustion. It's amazing. So here again, then along with that, you've got to have CO2. Carbon is one of the major ingredients in your fertilizer program. And if you don't have CO2 in your greenhouses, your plants are just going to not grow. It's going to make a huge difference. You've got to have carbon dioxide. Then you've got to have fans in there. You've got to have fans, we call them horizontal airflow fans. You've got to push that carbon dioxide you make into the canopy, because right under the leaf, the carbon dioxide is getting sucked up by the stomates. So you've got to get that air in there. Very important. So remember that. Fogging. Fogging is important. Fogging will give you some cooling. But remember, when it goes through the evaporative cooling pads, it gets a lot of humidity, and it's kind of like Texas again. We don't get a good drop in temperature. But what we do with fog, for me, I like to keep that moisture up under the dry season so that I have the right mix of temperature and humidity so those plants will work. And so some of these fog systems are very expensive because they work at 1,000 psi. So I got the cheaper ones. They work at about 20 psi, but I have the nozzles 2 meters, 6 feet above the wires, and comes on for 1 second, then goes off for 10 seconds. On, 10 seconds. 1, 10, 1, 10. And then my equipment's measuring the VPD, and then it goes off. When the VPD gets bad again, off, on. Increased yields by up 40%. By having that VPD right. So just remember that. Okay, so that's a fog. This is not good. Our fog system here, we haven't had the money to get it higher. Okay, anyway. So this is it here in Guatemala. We have it up to a couple of meters, and we put it on for one, and then it goes off. You've got to have the equipment, the time clocks to do that. So it's very important. Boilers, again, this is what the big guys do. It's very, very expensive, and they have scissor lifts in there, and these carts work on there. They have mechanical aids. Their cost of growing will be much less than yours. But remember, they're getting $1.25 a pound year-round. You're going to get $3 and something a pound because you take care of your plants and you know how they grow. A lot of growers from overseas don't have the biology. They do what their father did. They're still back in the horse and buggy days. Okay. If they hear me talking, they'll be upset, but that's true. Okay? Okay. Okay, know the computer system. I'm not good on computers. My wife can tell you all about that. But the thing is, know the computers, how to set that up to a point of artificial intelligence. When the light goes down, automatically it shifts the temperatures. And if you're not reliable, you even have equipment in your car. Here in the States or overseas, you can have equipment that tell you what's working in your greenhouse. That's how sophisticated we are. And you work with companies like Argus and some of those companies. Hey, I got a little part. You call them up in BC, Canada, they'll get online and fix it for you, no matter where you are in the world. They can do that. So there's a lot of reliability with those kinds, working with good companies. Whoops. Okay, growing systems. So grow in soil. Here's the organic boys. They're going to grow in soil. Can't use anything to kill the bugs. You know, we're just going to be one happy family. And we keep growing because we got a big investment in our greenhouse and we can't shut down and let the soil run. We got to keep them producing. So we keep doing that. And oh my golly, the soil's collapsed. I've had a little sodium in the water, collapsed the colloid, the water's starting to stand. What am I going to do? Okay, so that's the kind of deal. And you always know if you got a lot of calcium in the water, look at the calcium there. You know you got a lot of clay in the soil, look at the cracks. That's a Mount Bernil-like clay. And when that dries, it just cracks. You can almost make bricks out of it. Okay? Yeah, those organic, old-fashioned guys, they're not going to make it. They're not going to make it. They're going to get this kind of, where are they going to control these diseases? Roots go down 4 feet. What are you going to do? Solderize the soil that will go down 6 inches? Roots grow right back into the problem. See, these guys, these organic, didn't come to the University of Arizona. They didn't come to the University of Arizona. See, that's why you're here. And we get all these kind of phytophthora, root rot, nematodes. You got things that, you know, doctor can't cure. You get these fungi, stemphyllium, that comes up out of the soil, affects the leaves. This doesn't work. Okay? I went to Mexico. You know, I heard about Sri Lanka years ago. I ran into a guy that was with, I think he was with the CIA. I saw his passports, and, you know, he was an interesting guy. I met so many interesting people. He was out of New York City. He was an Irishman. He could speak 5 languages. He would jump out of planes with money belts to pay the underground of the French resistance during World War II. And they put him, his one last assignment was in Sri Lanka, and he learned about all this coconut waste. And he started putting it into bricks and shipping it to Holland. They were growing roses in it. And I didn't pay much attention to it. I went to Mexico one time, and I found out they have over 20,000 acres of coconuts. They got so many coconuts down there. They get the copra and the shells, they just let it pile up. So we started taking a hammer mill to it, and by gosh, it looked like peat moss. And it's natural. You can't get more natural than that. And it doesn't decompose like peat moss. The biology, the bacteria doesn't break it down. You can grow in this for 5 years and have to replace very little of it or add to it. So we started growing here. Dr. Rohrbaugh and I did that in 1996, 97, I think, one of those years. And we had tremendous growth. We compared different things. We had coconut coir, we had perlite, peat vermiculite, coir, perlite, and rock wool. And by golly, the coconut coir came right up on top and had a lot of the attributes as to the physical characteristics regarding water holding capacity and oxygenation. Everyone's now getting a coconut coir. It's only taken since 1997. They're finally getting it, but it's happening. And you can get slabs for not much more than $2. You got six plants in a slab. We treat our growers. We treat our growing system like a hospital. Absolutely walking through pads that are Virkon like you have in a hospital. We have white boots. We have special containers for our transplants. Everything is absolutely clean, especially when you get into the tropics. We take the growing bag here, or it could be any kind of growing media, and we take a polyethylene sheet going on like this, up, and the water drains out and then goes out. That's our trough to collect the water and recycle it. A cheap way to do it. Okay, so this is the grower I have in Washington State. So what he has done is that he has the polyethylene here comes underneath, goes underneath here, comes out here, goes down, goes up. That's the trough, okay? That's a good yield. They get 50 pounds a plant, $3.05 a pound. They got 4,000 plants in 16,000 square feet, which is 1/3 of an acre. Take 50 pounds, make it times 3. That's $150. Yeah, $150. Take it times 4,000 plants. My Cal Poly math won't go that high. They're doing very well. But they work hard. They work hard. They do very well, okay? So here we are with the CEACs. Again, we have those systems. Fertigation, you can't do much with these. It's kind of a way to use to get going. But when you really want to get the high yield, then you got to have that equipment controlled by your computers and light sensors, okay? Very important. And you got them by Priva. You have, this was one of the largest ones in the world built that I worked on in Guatemala. We had 3 of these pipes go to 1 hectare. That's 2.5 acres per hectare. So we had 3 valves in there. One greenhouse had small plants, so we only give them 90 parts per million nitrogen. These are over here with picking fruit. We're giving them 180 parts per million nitrogen. A lot of the greenhouse come, oh, I just put one line in, everything gets the same. Don't listen to them. You've been to the University of Arizona. I'm telling you that what happens is that these 3 valves, when the other 3 valves come on, there's a signal to the injectors and they readjust their dilution automatically. That's what you want. So don't put this down by the greenhouse. You got to bring all these lines back to the fertilizer shack and have them so that they get adjusted right there, because if you have one pipe, your greenhouse is going to get the last greenhouse's water. See what I mean? I think you understand. Okay, this is the operation we did, 25 acres. I don't recommend doing it this big. You know, it's a lot to learn. It's a lot to learn. Mineral nutrition, it differs a lot. Not a lot, but you know, peppers like a lot of nitrogen right from the beginning. Tomatoes don't like it. Nitrogen controls the leaf growth. It's vegetation, whether it gets reproductive or generative. The Dutch call it generative. We call it reproduction, reproductive growth. Vegetative growth. You know, we don't want those plants to think like poinsettias. They're happy and they're getting beautiful, but they're not making any fruit. We like to stress Mother Nature so she reproduces. That's a thing that developed over millions of years. You stress a walnut tree with low water, it'll have so many walnuts that fall you won't believe it. It's all about reproduction. I don't know if we're doing that with people or not, but anyway. Okay. You learned about the lysimeters, right? Really, you got to know. What first thing I do when I go out, kick that bucket. Well, not really. But I want to know whether those injectors are working and whether that water's working. First thing I do in the morning. Then what I do, we measure the drainage, and we want so much drainage because when we come in with water, 180 to 120 milliliters each watering, in the summertime we will water 3 or 4 times in an hour. We water 30 times a day because we have to come in with new water, new oxygen. Get the old water, no oxygen out. Okay, very important. Oops. This is the kind of thing you want to see with your nutrient analysis. I always love to see this. It's good to have a foliar analysis done by, this is A&L Greenhouse Great Lakes Laboratory. A&L, I don't work for them, but they give a good price, okay? And this is what you like to see, everything in balance. I don't know if they're giving you those levels, but we know exactly if you got certain levels in the tissue, you're going to make money. That's the way you have to keep it. Trends, healthy trends. Stacy was talking about all the healthy trends. This is pure sand. Taking waste from garbage from supermarkets, digesting it in 6 days as organic fertilizer, and going on pure sand and growing this lettuce 24 days over from a little seedling. 24 days over from a little seedling, all organic. That's what we had. Isn't that beautiful? That's where we're going. But we got some knuckleheads out there that don't get it. But they will. Remember I showed you constant farming, what it does? But besides, you might get some E. coli and salmonella along with it. That's organic too. Yeah, tell the hospital. Okay. So anyway, so look at that. Look at that kale, man. People put kale in machines, grind it up, and drink it while their teeth are green. You know, but that's really healthy. You know. Anyway, kale and broccoli. That's all organic. We do tomatoes that way. This is in Iowa on the border of Minnesota. We grow in a big bag. We have to put so much organic fertilizer in there for it to convert from proteins to nitrates. That's another whole lesson. We don't have time to get in that. Pest control. This is what happens. If you farm in the same material and don't sterilize, you're going to get fusarium or you're going to get verticillium. I have a book that has 50 diseases of tomatoes very common. You got to know them. You got to take safeguard against that. So this is verticillium here, our fusarium rather. And so we are grafting plants. I have small growers grafting plants, and they're learning by going Google onto and get Dr. Kubota's whole Sunday school lesson on grafting. I got little growers doing that at home now, very successfully. Anyway, these are the wild tomato plants, and you have tame ones, and you take the, well, let's go to the next slide. What they do, they take the wild tomato plant and cut the top off and throw it away. And then they take the tame tomato plant, the one they want to cultivate, they cut and keep the top, and then they have a little thing that hooks them together, okay? And they put it, and when you do that, you have to put them in a sweat box for 3 days so that they don't transpire water. Remember, plants don't transpire in high humidities like down in Houston. Put them in there, and they'll attach. We call them welding the plants. So when you'll see that, you see that little, I call it a roach clip, but anyway, that little clip on there. Sometimes I say things like this, God, I want you to remember, you see. I want you to remember, because I'm really pouring the stuff at you here, right? So we got that, and that's a nice grafted plant that's resistant to nematodes and certain fungi, okay? Very important. We have growers that go out. Our growers, a lot of our growers are well over $100,000 per year with a heck of a bonus. Like I say, we don't have that many kids that would qualify because it's a lot of work. But you have to be absolutely crazy about horticulture to do well. You know, it's a 7-day job. That's the grafted plant roots. That's the normal roots. See the difference? Unbelievable. Mr. Botrytis, a fungi, it happens. You got to create the right environment. This is what happens when you get fusarium. It kills your plants. Back to the whitefly again. This little guy here. This one, if you look at a whitefly, it looks like a jet fighter with the wings down. That's a bad one. If they're like that, it's a little bit better, but still not good. Okay? There's Trialoides versus Burmesia whitefly. They're different species. And we have biological wasps, but we got the best ones out of Pakistan for this whitefly, and they prioritize them, and I'm sure Stacy's talked to you about that. Okay? And that's what these viruses do. They just destroy crops. So we have the biologicals. You got to know how to raise them, how to take care of them, and all that. Harvest season. This is organic. This is Grimway Farms over in California, Cal Organic. Here they're growing organic tomato. But what I want to show you is that they pick right into the container. Then those containers go right into the packing area. And what they do, they either take a tomato out or put one in, and they got weight. So now you're picking into the boxes that you're shipping in. So do I have a greenhouse here, and a greenhouse here, and a greenhouse here, and I take my tomatoes out, the wind's blowing, get dusty? You've got to have them connected. I don't care how big you are, you got to have one door in, and you're connected to your whole thing, like a network. Because you can then do it. Time and motion is so important. There's not going to be any motion in the future. It's going to be a robot. And you'll probably be the robot, but anyway. Yeah, but because you're going to be out there. The only shadow we want on the greenhouse is you as the grower, okay? Packaging is very important. You want to get the eye, and I have so much photos, but I don't, I'm talking a long time. I know that. Holy cow, it's getting late. Okay, so anyway, that's the kind of that's the kind of cold room you like. It's empty. All the product, you just can't grow enough. This is Backyard Farms up in Maine. Okay. Like I say, I talk to a lot of consumers. I go and talk to them, and I say, I want to get your photo. She was a nice-looking lady. She looked like she's better than Juan Valdez, Okay? Remember, you guys are not old enough to know Juan Valdez. He was the one that advertised Colombia, coffee from Colombia. He had a big old serape, on a donkey. You never want to tell people how big you are. You want them to think that you're like Juan Valdez. You got little people from the mountains picking your tomatoes. They're so organic. Don't brag about how big you are. And don't brag about getting in the newspaper, because you're going to get a lot of federal government people coming in and looking at you. Just stay out of the newspaper. You want to be quiet. It's kind of like growing marijuana. Keep quiet. So anyway, I won't get into that. But if you do a good job, you might be able to have time to go fishing. Okay, that's on the Hudson River. One of my growers in eastern New York, in Vermont. Okay, you have any questions? You tell I have a lot of fun doing this lecture, but I hope some of it sinks in. Okay, and any questions? Ask anything. Yes. Yeah. Okay. You got to be in an area where there's Italians. Yeah, you got to have Italians. Okay, you got to look around. If you go in an area where there's a lot of Hispanics, they don't know what an eggplant is. You know, so they got to look at the people around you. I mean, those people in Sacramento didn't have basil, but if you take basil from an Italian away, I mean that's bad news, right, Dr. G? Yeah. So the thing is. So the other thing is, we got a lot of beautiful eggplant. They got white stripes, and they're different colors. And then you go to Whole Foods. They understand. They have a clientele that will afford that. And what you do, a lot of times, I learned this at Cal Poly. I would have an abundance of one of my vegetables growing. And you know what I would do? I have cauliflower, for example. My wife would print out a sauce of cheese sauce, and I would have that there free. You buy this cauliflower, you get that free. And boy, that just blew it out of the door. So if you got something, have a little recipe with it, okay? You know, another thing is that we haven't not doing yet. If you have a great product, you have a little flat screen TV, and you play, you could have a loop, or you could have it. You have that in the supermarket about your project. And a lot of people today have these fancy iPhones, and they go to the barcode and they punch the button and they get a whole story about your tomatoes, right? So think about customer relationships. And I've watched people in the supermarket where they have that screen. And you know, people are not really watching it, but they feel comfortable. They're being talked to. They like it. You know, it's kind of like having that little ticking clock with the baby to keep it quiet, because they think it's the mother's heart. See? So the thing is that it's amazing. I spend a lot of time just watching people in the supermarket, touching the tomatoes, sniffing, you know. It's really great. Any more questions? Yes. Well, there's a lot of attention given to equipment now to grow lettuce, where the lettuce comes to you. Okay? Then you say, okay, how am I going to package that lettuce? Am I going to take that head with the lettuce, and am I going to grow it through a little Mexican hat, with the hat down, with the cube in? Follow me? And that little thing is round, and I set it on top of a tube, and I suck that plant down with air. Done. Ready to go to market. It's going to be things like that. So it's just to shortcut the process of whatever you're doing. It may be not an arm that reaches out. We may have that when it picks. You know, I don't know where we're going with robotics. Dr. Giacomelli is working now on I think, full-time position engineer on robotics, right? It's humming. It's coming. You know, we had a lot of trouble with picking tomatoes by hand in California. We're starting to run low on labor, so we came with a mechanical harvest. And everyone complained, oh, you're driving a lot of people a lot of work. What happened, they grew the industry so much with that economic that these people now want to box factories, warehouses, and made boxes. So that's what happened. Any more questions? Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Well, we keep about 4.5 to 7. You can't get. It's hard to get over 7. They'll have these nano bubbles. That's a bunch of hogwash, as far as I'm concerned. I think that. Dr. Giacomelli can tell you all about that. But we did. Yeah. But yeah, about 4.5 to 7 dissolved oxygen parts per million. Good. Yeah. And be sure when you bubble water that you're not using a compressor, you pump your tires up. Because that's oil in there, and it'll kill your plants. And kill you if you're using an aqualung. Yes. Yeah, well, you talk to old Christian back there. You know Christian from Puerto Rico, right? They're right in the tropics growing lettuce, and it's packaging. It's packaging. You got to get that lettuce while the roots are still wet. If you're doing it with the roots, you don't want those roots to get dry. If they get dry right away, you're losing water out of the plant. You got to keep it wet and get it into a package, and maybe have the top showing, but that's it. If you got a real low humidity, you're going to have to pinch it closed. Now, the gel, yeah, hydrophilic polymer. Well, hydrophilic polymer, it depends. Some of the hydrophilic polymers have enough salts in it, they don't give up the water very easily. They hold water, but they don't give it up. They hold the water quite tightly. So those are starches and polymers, and it's kind of I think it's kind of a little voodoo agriculture. I'm not sure it's good. If you see that kind of thing, people come to you, they say, show me the numbers. And get the numbers from a university that's done the research. And our job at the University of Arizona here, and I think Dr. Giaconelli would say yes, so our job is to produce the numbers. We're not to give opinion on what's good or bad. We'll do the numbers for a company at a fee, and then they decide what they want to do. Yes. Well, the ones probably doing right, they may be generating their own electricity, but I don't know what they're paying for the oil or for the whatever. But the real reason was that the electricity has been so expensive because of the cost of the nuclear reactors and the tsunami and all that. The first ones to go out of business were banks and power companies. They got into it right away because they thought it was going to be a great future. But I've been in Japan where they grow beautiful crops in the open green, in the high tunnels, do beautiful. It's kind of a religion, and I think we got to be careful and not get caught up in this religious wave like this organic thing. Is that it comes down whether you make money or not, and it's safe. In other words, food safety is very important. Yes. I can't really answer that because I'm just starting now to get interested in growing, indoor growing. I think that if you get 16 to 15 or 16 to 18 moles, 16 to 18 moles of light. Did you know about light levels, moles and micromoles and all that? If you get 18 moles artificial light, you could probably grow a variety like Rex is a bib lettuce that grows. I think it would go good under cover, but I don't know that. Yeah. I'm 2 years away from going on 80 years old, and it's unbelievable what's happening now. If we had a great finding in one in a year, that was now every week. So I don't even have time to get tired. Anyway, another question, yes. Yes, we're looking at it, big time. Big time. We are now growing 15 pounds of blueberries the first year. We're doing it organically. No, there are certain varieties. I don't know the varieties because I haven't gotten that deep into it, but they're doing this in Santa Barbara. And in fact, we're going into thousands of acres that way. And we're doing it organically in synthetic soils. The Driscolls and those companies are going to really hurt with this organic movement. So we haven't heard the end of it. I don't know what they're going to do about it, but the big money will get coming out on it because, the biology, it's the rhizome that we're talking about. it's not. It's the environment within the roots that we worry about. Any more questions? Yeah, raspberries. We're looking at the raspberries. I come from the raspberry capital in the world. It's up in Whatcom County, Washington State. We grow raspberries on last year's wood. So what you got to do is that you take the old wood out that we picked the raspberries from. You got to cut that out, and then take the new wood and put them together and train them so they're mechanically harvested. Takes a lot of people, and I don't know if we're going to have it's Hispanics that do the work. They get good pay, but I don't know if we're going to have enough in the future. So what are we doing? We're going to annuals. So the raspberries are produced on this year's wood. And they're doing a lot of work at New York at Cornell University. So when you produce, you just mow the stuff down, and it grows back new with new raspberries. And I think once we get to that, we might look at it for greenhouses. But they're going to have to be low cost. You're not going to be able to put a lot of heat in it. Because it's cheaper per mile in energy than to give the energy to grow the crop. See what I mean? We've done a lot of work on that. Yeah, the shelf life is pretty small, although we see a lot of raspberries come in from New Zealand, but they're flowing in. Yeah. Right. Right. Okay. Right. If you're going to hire a grower and pay him $50,000, $60,000, you have to probably be at least an acre and a half. Now, here's the deal. This is very important for you as a small grower. So you say, okay, I'm growing tomatoes and I got 12 stores. My pickup truck or my van will only go to 12 stores per day. Okay? And you say, oh no, I want to get bigger. So now you got so many tomatoes that what's happening is that now you're getting away from the high touch with your high tech. High touch, I mean when you deliver your tomatoes, you take to the producer. How you doing today? It's high touch. So what I do, I have growers that get up about 16,000, a third of an acre, so we add another crop. So I can still go to the same stores, but I got another crop, the cucumbers now with tomatoes, right? I just get a bigger van, but the same stores. And those managers, what happens is, those managers, when we first came in the Hagans, they would put our tomatoes over to the side somewhere. Now, when we get tomatoes coming on the market in April, they'll put them right in the front of the store. People have to trip over them. They want people to know their tomatoes are back. And the thing is that, but again, you don't have the high touch. That is really concerning. That is really concerning to people, to big growers. What are they going to do about the high touch? But, yes. Right. Yeah. We have two people that I have growers that have local people, maybe ladies that are work half day while the kids are in school. We have that part-time. Yeah. And we have Hispanics that work. They come up. Hispanics anymore get caught. They don't get shipped back. They keep them. And what happens is they pay taxes. The unfortunate thing, they're not paying into Social Security. There's been said that we have over sometimes thousands of people, Hispanics from Mexico, with the same Social Security number because the owners ship the money in, but the federal government keeps it. See, I'm all for them having Social Security and being able to. So that's the thing, is that a 16,000 square feet will take about 3 laborers when you're in full bore harvest, about 3 people. Yeah, right. Yeah. And normally with the big guys, they will do it with 5 or 6 people for a whole acre, which is 43,560 square feet. Okay, so that's because they got all the mechanical aids. tomatoes. No, we have to. Well, we got to get up there where those Democrats are up there in Phoenix. No, I'm just joking. I'm just joking. You know, it's really along the coast of Pacific, along the United States. Is where there's a lot of money. So you got to get up there where the money is, and Phoenix has it. So we got to get up to Phoenix. Are you local? Okay. Yeah. No, yeah, if you can grow a product and have it 12 months a year here, or maybe 10 months, and you can guarantee that store that you're going to have that. What I would do, I would go in to see them and say, hey, look, I got a great product. But I'm going to prove it to you, and I really believe in it. I'm going to go on consignment. What you don't sell, I'll take back. And we'll try that for 3 months. If you sell it all, then we'll just, you cover the shrinkage. What Christian was telling me, what they do in Puerto Rico, if I might say that, he says they have a deal that if the lettuce decays within the first 3 days, they'll take it back. If it decays after 3 days, the store has to suffer the lossage because they did something wrong. So, but again, a lot of, I think, when we started selling greenhouse tomatoes, we couldn't hardly give them away because they were growing in the low light in Ohio. They were pink colors. They were terrible tomatoes. They were terrible. But now we're starting, the breeders, and Ed can tell you from DeRuyter Seed, they're working really hard on flavor. Really hard on flavor. And so when you're growing cherry tomatoes, we go in with a 4 EC when they're starting to produce. We go in with 4 EC and 7 EC out. And we have bricks of 7. Yeah, as the lady said, I have to tell my kids to finish their dinner before they have any tomatoes. New Zealand, yes. Well, yeah. Right. Well, what happens is that there are already plane loads are coming from New Zealand, the Kiwis, and also from Chile. We get a lot. A lot of times they're freight airplanes. They sell those raspberries for, as the English would say, they're very dear. Okay, they sell them for a lot of money, and people at Whole Foods don't even think about it. They'll buy it. They don't shop with their pocketbook. They shop with what they want. So you got to find those stores. Any other? Yes. Yeah, we have a long line, and every plant has a little spaghetti too, right? Right. Oh, I see. Okay. Okay, what you then have, if you, in other words, you're telling me you got different age plants in one greenhouse? Right. Right. Yes, yes. Ah, I would. No. You wouldn't do that. What you do, your solenoid valve is hooked into the computer, and that solenoid valve handles a roll of tomatoes. So when that solenoid valve comes on, it's got a number, and it goes into the computer, and things all adjust automatically. Yeah, that's what it does. But that's going to cost you $50,000 for that system. But if you got 3/4 of an acre, I mean, I got growers half acre, 3/4 of an acre. They go to Argus and they get the best. They do. They do. Now, we live Argus, but the thing is, what we do is that we get Argus computer systems, and their injectors are from Anderson. They work with Anderson Company, so when you can have a computer program that the Anderson injector will raise or lower the EC automatically according to the computer by Argus. So Anderson injectors and Argus work together. It's a good thing to remember, because sometimes when you're small, these injectors are very expensive. So we get them from Anderson, and Anderson works with cities, and they were used in citywide, and that's where we started years ago. Yes. Only cherry tomatoes, not big tomatoes. We don't. No, you got to watch that. You got to keep that EC at 7. Oh yeah, 30 to 40% runoff. 30-40% runoff. Oh yeah, we get that right off. And then I've developed systems with Ken Gerhardt, a person that Gene and I work with, and we've developed systems where that runoff, we know that that runoff will be, I say 30%, that I have to have 70%, 30% used water, 70% new water, and we get the right EC. So the injectors do that. Yeah, yep. Oh, yeah, because if you got too much EC, that EC will be 6, or there'll be 5. You're going in with 4, but if you got too much runoff, you're leaching so much, your runoff, you're only going to have maybe 6 EC. So you do your EC, roughly it's about 30-40% at the end of the day. Your EC going in 4 will come out 7. If you're coming out less than that, then what you do, you irrigate, your time period between irrigations will be more, a greater time period. If you want more drainage, you always water the same amount to each plant, 80 to 120 milliliters. But you want more water to drain through, you've got the time periods shorter on watering. You follow me? Yeah. Yeah, sometimes we do 5. And you got to design your system so that you get through this solenoid valve and get back here in 5-10 minutes that you can do the watering again. Some people build really big systems. Oh, I didn't think about getting back to that one. Well, it gets back tomorrow. Don't worry. Okay.
Kind of a weird question, but I'm from Missouri. Our laws are different when it comes to certain industries, and this is the first time I've been around people who grow cannabis. So I'm wondering what your personal opinion on it is.
I'll tell you. No, let me just. No. Let me just tell you. It's a great story. It's really good. I have a family in Sacramento. When the market got bad, they got out of business, and some guys came in with full documents from Oakland, California, to grow cannabis. He showed the sheriff. Yeah, everything good. So he rented his greenhouses. 6 months later, they came in, the feds, with armed vehicles and big hammers and knocked the doors down, put them up against the wall. They're fine Christian people. And they were scheduled to go to jail for 20 years. They had lawyers that cost them $150,000 and got it down to 6 months. So it's up to you. It's up to you. Those sheriffs said it was all right, but they saw something wrong. He reported it to the feds. They came in, the sheriff got a pay raise, and the guys ended up going to jail for 20 years. True story. Maybe I ought to have them come give a talk sometime. Anyway.
What about like the technology that maybe be ushered in by like the industry?
Well, we don't deal with it because we work with state funds, and there's enough other. Let me just tell you this: there's going to be so much production. You can buy marijuana cheaper than alfalfa pellets. So just wait. You, the grower, are going to lose your butt. Just wait. Just wait. Come back in 2 years and tell me. Okay, just a little challenge here, okay? Yeah. Okay, I think I better quit, huh, Doc? Okay, you said it's about time. Okay. Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah.